Welcome to Damsels in Dialogue, a podcast dedicated to female protagonists in fiction, film, and the stage, co-hosted by Katie Zutter
and India Marie Paul. For our 4th season, we take a deep dive into the leading ladies of the Golden Age musicals and discuss just how well these Hollywood and Broadway characters have aged.
This episode, we travel back to 1920s Hollywood and follow actress Kathy, who finds her lucky star in the American classic, Singing in the Rain.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Damsels in Dialogue.
We are happy to have you.
Yes.
After what a rowdy episode last time.
It was like a rowdy episode. I think it fit. It was lovely.
It was great.
This episode is about a musical that has been voted by American Film Institute in 2006. They came out with this list, and it was the best musical of all time. So
the movie musical, right?
The movie musical. Best movie musical of all time in American film history. That's the technical list.
And it did make some like big American film headway. So it does in some ways that makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
Big name actors in it. In this podcast, we talk about women in fiction, film, and the stage. So I can't say words because I'm a little disappointed with how well beloved the show is. To this one female character. And yes, you heard me right. One female character that we will be talking about today. But that does not discredit everything that's done to deserve that title. It's just a little disappointing on our end.
We'll talk about what about the creation of it made it work so well and why I think it's become a standard and like what things it did. But as far as like progression for female development of characters, I would say it was par for the years it was released.
Which is a bummer because some of the musicals we've talked about have been pushing forward some more. You know, and some were so far up, like ahead of their times. Yeah. Especially in the movie musical genre, because we have had a pretty solid mix of, shows that start off as musicals and shows that start off as movies. Yeah. So when comparing this to Gentlemen for Blondes, it is quite different. It is.
Yes.
Feminine showcase, if you will.
Yeah, it's like I grew up watching it, so it's very nostalgic for me. So,
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's like a lot of people's faves who can't sing at least a song from that.
Oh yeah,
like everyone's seen it. Well, most have done it, I would argue.
Yeah. Well, like there is a reason why everyone knows the songs, even at that time. So this musical was birthed from MGM, and Arthur Freed was a lyricist and scored talkies with Nasio Herb Brown. Like that was a little duo that did a lot of writing for talkie movies in the 1920s. Yeah. So their song "Singing in the Rain" appeared in the Hollywood Review of 1929. That was the first time it's appeared in cinema.
This is very like white Christmassy vibes.
Yes,
it's like that genre where we love the music and then we build a show.
Yes. Well, exactly. So it was in the 1940s, Arthur Freed headed his own unit. It was like the Freed unit at MGM. So he went from lyricist score talkies, had his own unit at MGM, and he decided he wanted a movie musical made from his backlog of music.
Oh my gosh.
So he literally went, I want to use all of my songs and make up a story. So that's what happened. Only 2 songs were actually written for the movie itself that hadn't existed. And it was Moses Supposes and Make 'Em Laugh, which we will talk about more in the after hours because Make 'Em Laugh has a whole thing.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But there was a woman involved in the screenplay.
Ooh, amazing. So Betty
Comden and Adolph Green were hired to write the screenplay. Now, they had done On the Town together in 1944. She was a female lyricist, playwright, and screenwriter. She did things on Broadway. She started doing stuff in Hollywood. And the pair realized that the backlog of songs felt very, very much of the era of 1920s. So they decided not to fight against it and set the show in the 1920s. One of them was quoting, "It occurred to us that rather than try to use them in a sophisticated contemporary story, they would bloom at their happiest in something that took place in the very period in which they had been written." Which I thought was a really smart move. They didn't have to fight against style. Like they just like, we're going to put it in the 20s. And any
I feel
kind
like it helps things age too. If you don't try to make it modern, if you try to put it back even a decade, then it's not weirdly outdated technology. Like you're already making it vintage, if that makes sense.
It became like a historical piece.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really smart of them to do that. They had to create the entire plot. All they had was a catalog of songs. And luckily they were composers themselves and writers themselves, so they understood how to use the music in a narrative way rather than just focusing on story, which I think is what also benefited. Like the songs did really inform the narrative of the story. Some of them are just like songs that are placed in.
Oh, for sure. Some of them are silly songs that we're dancing to because we love to dance. Like, I get that. But there are a couple that are...
that feel like they used it, you know? One of the screenwriters had bought a house in Hollywood from a former silent film star who lost his wealth with the innovation of sound film, sound and film killing his career. So that was part of the inspiration for the film itself, was the fact, why I think it's such an interesting piece too, and why it's lasted. It does talk about a historical part of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a real life event that happened.
Yeah, and a lot of the characters were based on actual people that existed. I can go through some of those afterwards. Kathy was not. So like the main characters,
of course, who we want to talk about, is not. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think the only one who like really had a true name was Zelda in it. And she was based on Zelda Xanders, or the Zip Girl. I think it's like she's in quotes or whatever. Is based on Clara Bow, who was the It Girl of the time.
Oh, okay.
So they like that was the only character that slightly had a moment in the film that was based on someone. Also, Zelda was played by Rita Moreno.
Oh, nice.
So before West Side Story, you know,
get that. We've had so many people like West Side Story. Is truly the amalgamation of everything we've talked about.
I'm very excited.
Can't wait for that. Not now, but later. Can't wait
later. But this film was released in 1957.
Makes sense to me.
Sounds good. Good.
Checks out.
But the main characters were their creation. I will say Donald O'Connor was a little inspired by Arthur Freed himself, who did play for the underscoring of things at rehearsals and did a lot of that work that Donald O'Connor's character Cosmo does in the movie itself. This was a movie first, and there has been an attempt at theatricalizing it, which we will talk about once we get through the movie. Not that successful of a switch for reasons that we will discuss too.
That's another one that I think a ton of schools do.
Oh, that's cool.
Schools do. I've seen multiple, and I've choreographed for a few.
Nice.
Like high schools and colleges do that a lot.
What's but a classic?
Truly but you don't see. There's no like massive.
Big
Chicago,
professional
Chicago is not
tour.
doing it. Like
So it started off as a musical built for the catalog. So you have all them working on it. And then Gene Kelly started being interested in Don Lockwood as a character. So it turned into a dance extravaganza.
Of course, because he was in it. It's not even like the character. That's just, you're being generous. That was just because Gene Kelly was in it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, what if I told you what I wanted to do? Thank you.
Well, and he would not only star, but he went on to co-direct and choreograph it as well.
Unsurprised.
So he pushed it even further away from the singing music element where it started, and it became very focused on dance.
Of course.
So before I talk about Kathy, I'll talk about the shallower character of it, because Lena Lamont, who I love, but it's very shallow of a character, was written for the actress Judy Holliday. It ultimately went to Judy Holliday's frequent understudy, Gene Hagen, for scheduling reasons, I think. Gene Hagen didn't base Lena's voice on any actual silent film stars. Some people have rumored that she based it on anything, but her entire performance, the squeaky, raspy, Sunnyside Queens, slight accent, all that body language, was based on characters that Judy Holliday often portrayed, like characters in Born Yesterday. So, she caricaturized characters that were caricatured. So she, just fully went into what people characterize her usual portrayal as, which I thought was an interesting that she wasn't.
Interesting, yeah.
So that's kind of what she contributed to. And now if you play Lena Lamont, you have you can't do that role without it being somewhat close-ish. Like, you still have to have a horror-sounding voice.
Right.
So no matter what you do, if you play Lena Lamont, you have to do something. And she definitely feels very almost Adelaide-ish, and usually how she's portrayed in that like higher, more comedic
she has
sound.
Zero character to her, though.
Oh yeah, no, and 100%.
I would argue, because we've just talked about like a bunch of. She's super funny. She's super funny.
Oh yeah,
it's still like a ridiculous role to play, but from everybody that we've talked about, like even comparing it to the last episode, where they were silly, kind of ridiculous characters that had at least layers to them. She really doesn't have anything.
No,
she is just a flat, this is what you are, period.
She's a comedy moment, and she's a plot point for comedy.
Yeah, and that's it. She has
that's
nothing else, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it is. It is, because we've talked about Adelaide, who could have fallen into that category, but had so much more depth to her. So we know it can happen. But yeah, so Rita Moreno played Zelda, and she actually had a song at one point that got like cut from the movie. I don't think it fully got into fruition, but they were talking about doing it.
I guess, how would you sing it if you'd have to like purposely do it super, super bad?
Yeah.
Maybe they couldn't like make it. I wonder. Well, that it might. I don't know.
Zelda is Lena's friend.
Oh, right.
But Lena gets a song in the musical.
Yes, she does,
which is quite funny.
Oh my gosh,
it's ridiculous, but it is quite funny. But okay, so Kathy Seldon.
Yes,
our girl Kathy. Judy Garland, June Allison, and Ann Miller were considered for Kathy, but they were all considered too old. And I air quoted that for all of our podcast listeners.
I hate Hollywood.
So Jane Powell was considered for a little moment, but then 19-year-old
Powell, what a tap dancer,
right? But 19-year-old Debbie Reynolds ended up being cast. Like, she wasn't brand new to Hollywood. She'd done a couple films, so this wasn't like her breakthrough necessarily.
And she was just a wonderful human being.
Yes.
She is a great human being, which makes it so much worse that she went through so much in this, like, arguably one of her biggest, like, not that she like you just said, she's not super, super new, but she's not.
This is what she's known for. Yeah, like this is what she is known for, even like when she recently passed. Like, people know her as
that in Halloween Town.
Oh, yeah, that in Halloween Town. Are we really? I love it so much.
At least in my generation.
She is great. She is great in that movie too. She's great in everything she does.
And of course, the mother of Leia.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, but she was discovered at a beauty pageant and was a gymnast.
Wow.
With no dance experience. No dance experience at all.
That is shocking to hear, because she is so in control of her body. And especially Gene Kelly is, he's a dancer.
Yes.
That cannot be argued.
Yes.
So to be able to stand next to him, and he's very good at being like, pretend that you're in the background and I will costume you so you do not, you blend in. And so for her to like stand at least with him is shocking that she doesn't have any dance training.
Yeah. Like, had none. Had none. Gene Kelly was kind of mad that she was cast.
For sure.
There's lots of rumors about like what he said, what he did when he found, like, there's lots of that kind
Honestly,
of crap.
That makes sense from his point of view, because if it's a big dancer show, and he doesn't know this person who can't dance, like, what the heck?
Yeah, exactly. But he decided he was going to teach her to dance exactly like he taught Frank Sinatra how to dance for Anchors Away.
Oh, no.
Which Frank Sinatra should never dance.
No.
Just put that out there. Debbie Reynolds is quoted as saying, "The two hardest things I ever did in my life are childbirth and singing in the rain." So let's talk a little bit what happened to our poor Kathy in the development of this show. Debbie Reynolds was 19, living with her parents still, and so she commuted to the set. She had to wake up at 4 a.m. and ride 3 different buses to the studio, and sometimes to avoid the commute, she just slept on the set. So this is what this girl was doing.
Heaven forbid they get her a taxi.
Right?
Or like a trailer.
Well, she's not Gene Kelly. So that's fun. Gene Kelly was absolutely ruthless to Reynolds because she couldn't keep up with the challenging choreography, because he didn't dumb down his choreography. Of course for someone. Not. Like, she had to dance next to one of the greatest dancers of the golden age.
Yes.
Constantly. Man. So there's a couple like stories about that.
She says politely.
There's an entire musical that was written called What a Glorious Feeling about the creation of Singing in the Rain.
Out of here. When was that made?
I'm not sure when it was written. I have to look it up, but I saw it. I witnessed it at a regional theater, and I just went, what happened on Singing in the Rain? Like, it was so there, like, it was enough drama that someone wrote a musical about the making of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
And about how ruthless that was. So some of those stories include, after 14 hours of filming Good Morning, Reynolds' feet were bleeding and she had to be carried to the dressing room.
Ew.
So Kelly was known to be cruel to Reynolds and constantly criticizing her dancing. Debbie Reynolds wrote that Kelly was a perfectionist and a disciplinarian, but was also the most exciting director I've ever worked for. So this girl gets put through the ringer and it still has nothing but kind of nice things to say about Gene Kelly.
Saint. My gosh.
She further goes on, I think it was in an autobiography she wrote this, but that she learned a lot from Gene Kelly, and he has a good temper. Ever so often he would yell at me and make me cry, but it took a lot of patience for him to work with someone who had never danced before. It's amazing that I could keep up with him and Donald O'Connor.
I wonder if I can't tell, because it's hard to know from reading things, the flavor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can't tell if this is a truly he was trying but frustrated that this, massive show that he is now decided to kind like semi-head. Yeah. That's this big dancer thing. And they had the audacity to not only cast somebody who's so far below everybody else in the cast, but also someone who can't dance, and they know it's supposed to be a dance TV show. Yeah. And that was him doing his best not to take it out on her, but still getting frustrated. I don't know if it's like that was part of it, or if she's being nice because it's Gene Kelly, or if it's like, and he was like, trash, or it's a flavor of both. Like,
I think it's a mixture of a lot, because Kelly has admitted that he was ill-mannered on set.
Yes.
He has
on different occasions, hasn't he? Like on different sets as well.
Yeah. He has admitted that.
Like he knows that he has a big head.
Yeah. He flat out he's quoted as saying, "I wasn't nice to Debbie. It's a wonder she still speaks to me."
Okay.
So he maybe admits it.
That like helped her see maybe through some of his frustration that maybe it's not all at her.
Yeah. And he did at one point compliment her during he's quoted saying, "Fortunately, Debbie was strong as an ox. Also, she was a great copyist, and she could pick up the most complicated routine without too much difficulty at the University of Hard Work and Pain." So he ended up complimenting her.
Should she be an ox? No. Are we glad that she is? Yes. My gosh.
Yeah. Donald O'Connor and Debbie Reynolds admitted they did not enjoy working with Gene Kelly, since he was verbally belittling and a tyrant. But O'Connor said that for the first several weeks, he was terrified of Donald O'Connor, who is, his own star in his own right by this point. Said that for the first several weeks, he was terrified of making a mistake and being yelled at by Kelly.
Yikes.
And that it's been admitted that Gene Kelly would use Donald O'Connor as his whipping boy on set when he was frustrated with Debbie, so he wouldn't always yell at her.
Yikes.
So
that makes perfect sense then, that he would take out so much of his frustration on her when it's not her fault.
Well, yeah, I mean,
she was put in that position.
It was a horrible position for her to be put in. Like, they didn't train her to do it. She was cast. And then, I mean, like, the pressure of getting things right and ready is insane. Did he handle it well? No. Absolutely not. Is that excusable? Like, it's inexcusable to make someone cry who's doing the best they can and who he admits is doing the best she can.
Yeah.
But Reynolds found an unlikely savior in Fred Astaire, who found her crying under a piano one day in the studio lot. So
under a piano?
Yes. He found her crying under a piano, and so Fred Astaire was notoriously closed-doored when he rehearsed.
Yeah.
He let her watch him rehearse.
Really?
And he actually, she said that he let me sit there by the door and watch him die creating his steps. He was just sweating, turning red in the face, and after about an hour, he looked over and he said, "That's enough. You see how hard it is? It never gets easier." And he helped give her.
Sweet, actually.
Yeah, it's like so he found her crying.
Because he was one of the big dancers at the time too. Very different styles of dance. But
he was like the king of tap.
Yeah.
Like he was the king of tap. And so we found this 19-year-old actress crying under a piano, decided to help train her a little bit, like gave her some extra lessons. And let her watch him dance, which he never let people do. So that was kind of wholesome.
Wow.
To find out. But yeah, it was a very trying time for Debbie.
Huh. Yikes. That's tough for her. I mean, I'm glad she still survived.
Yep.
And she did continue to work throughout her entire career.
Oh yeah. Like this didn't, it doesn't keep her from doing amazing work.
She did a lot for a very long time and was a very sweet soul in Hollywood.
Yeah. 1952. Sorry.
Yeah.
1952. 52 it was released. It was released in 52.
The movie was released. Okay.
I don't know why I had 57 in my brain. 52.
Sounds good to me. She says again.
Yeah. I will say that there are a couple like lighthearted stories from the set.
Yeah.
Is that Debbie used to chew gum, and before a take of the song "You Were Meant for Me," she stuck her gum on the rung of a ladder, and Gene Kelly during the take leaned in on the ladder and his toupee stuck on the gum.
Gene Kelly, why do you need a toupee? Sounds like
she got yelled at. But
she got yelled at?
She got yelled at, but worth it maybe? I don't know.
I mean, did he have it coming? Perchance.
Yes. And something that the biggest inception, before we start talking about the
character itself.
Character itself, is that so in the looping sequence, when Kathy Seldon is dubbing the dialogue for Lena Lamont, she's like, my heart turned cold, like that deep voice that she does. Reynolds is not speaking.
It doesn't sound like her.
I know.
So
it's not her. It is Jean Hagen who plays Lena Lamont.
What?
Who has a naturally deep, rich voice. So Jean Hagen, Lena Lamont, is dubbing Debbie Reynolds, Kathy, who is dubbing Lena Lamont in the movie.
What a lot of time.
So,
like, what? Why did they just, what?
I don't know. I don't know why they didn't just let Debbie Reynolds do it.
Right.
So the Lena Lamont's actress is dubbing herself.
How? What a bold choice.
I was like, okay. And then when Debbie is singing "Would You" in that voice, it is Debbie, there's another one. Betty Noyes, who has a much richer singing voice than Debbie, actually sings that version of "Would You" when she's singing for Lena Lamont. So they're just like creating it themselves. Like, I don't know. That was the weirdest Inception thing.
Yeah.
To think about. So I wanted to like step by step go through that.
That's a lot. That's a lot. All right.
Okay. It came out to mixed reviews. Now voted #1 best musical of all time.
Oh yeah. It's
yeah. It was also like people compared it to American in Paris, which had just come out from Gene Kelly. So people were a little less like, this is like a cheap version of American, Paris. But
right. But I would argue more people do Singin' in the Rain still. Like American in Paris.
Oh no, it's not nearly. Yeah, Singin' in the Rain definitely surpassed it eventually. Like it had a big rebirth on like
right.
They re-released it, I think, a couple years later just to like boost it, and it became a little bit more popular.
Well, it also has such iconic. Not to make his head bigger, but Gene Kelly has such like iconic dance moments in this show, particularly like the Singin' in the Rain tap dance in the water. You have the famous. The three of them, Good Morning, where they took the couch over. I feel like those are things that are iconic that you know and that they continue to do.
Oh,
It's like that kitschy thing that you're like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. Blech.
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like high schools and colleges do it a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely good. Like if you have some dancers, it's a good show to.
But at the time, you said it was like mixed
reviews?
It
was mixed. It was half and half on reviews and stuff, and definitely has had a much bigger life after that. But Kathy, so dear Kathy. Here's what I'll say. I think I really like Kathy. I think she does call him on his BS in the car, which I really enjoy that, like the banter scene with them.
Oh yeah, she does vocally. I know you're talking specifically banter, but she does keep up with them in pace with their speech, which I appreciate.
Yes,
they don't slow down. Her words and her delivery is just as fast and sharp as theirs is.
Yes.
But continuing with what you were saying, which like we do love that she calls him out this one single time.
Well, yeah, it's like they write her in which she does stand up, but then at the end ends up doing it anyway. You know, like, it's that like the claim of like having agency, but I don't actually know that she does in the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I don't think it's kind of like, I think of her a little bit, which makes me feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
She has a little bit of the Cinderella effect. Where she is a good person. She's fun to watch. She's entertaining. She is this, you see her come out of a cake at a birthday party and you're like, oh, you'd be great on the stage.
Fabulous,
and you kind of love that she's like whisked away, like Cinderella-esque, like to the castle to live her dreams.
Yeah.
But a lot of it happens to her.
Yes.
And very, very, very little she has control over.
Yeah.
So looking at through that, like that lens of, oh, I could be whisked away at my, from my life to something bigger, I think it makes her look a little better.
Yeah. And
makes that story a little more romantic. But without that lens, like her not having any agency at all is a little tough.
It is. And I do think that's important. Like it feels of the time like it was fine. And still like
for sure.
Like she does speak her mind.
Mm-hmm.
She does, like when Dawn finds her again and she's on that set and they're like, hey, we want to talk to you. And she's like, I'm leaving. Like just chooses to leave, but then gets brought back. Like it's very romanticized. It's very like white knighty, which, is for the time period, it's the perfect, 52. Like it's about Dawn. Like the show is about Dawn and she gets to be the true ingenue of the show. And like she makes friends with Cosmo. I hate the like where she does tell him that she's leaving. Like she doesn't want to speak to him again at the very end.
Yeah.
When he's pushing her on stage and lying to her, being like, you have to do it because they need to get her to reveal that. Like, that's also, it's not like a horrible trick on her to not put her in that position.
In on it at all.
That's what bothers
me. You didn't
me.
Ask her at all.
You couldn't have included her in the plot. Like just have a moment of like, we're gonna reveal you, just do it. So instead she gets embarrassed.
Yes.
And then stopped.
Because of course she does.
Yeah. She's in the middle of people and they're laughing at Lena and now she's a part of it. But now she's embarrassing Lena in front of her
now she's
group.
Caused this. That is now like the job she just got.
Yeah.
And now.
Yep. Yep.
Like what?
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. So and she's not the one fighting for herself to be recognized.
No.
Which is also a problem. Like she succumbs to what that world is because it was the world. Like usually those people were hidden.
Yeah.
But she wasn't the one. I do appreciate that they were fighting for her to be recognized.
Oh, for sure. Great. For sure. That was really nice. Did they listen to her input at all? No. But they did fight for her. So I do like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does she, throughout this whole story, does she change a whole ton during it?
No.
Other than maybe starting to understand her worth, I would maybe argue.
Yeah,
she's starting to understand
like
her talents.
Yeah, because she is. She's a struggling performer, and
for sure.
It is a great comedic reveal of her having the whole speech about like him not being a real actor. Like that's a great speech. Like he needs his ego knocked down, and I love that she knocked down his ego. Like that's great. And then for her to pop out of a cake, you're just like, oh, I feel like you do what you have to do. Like she's working hard.
Right.
She popped out and she crushed it.
Yes.
And then he follows her around like the whole like party. And she does, you know what? She gets to throw a cake at someone. And she was going to choose to throw a cake at Dawn Lockwood.
That is correct.
That's pretty bold. She doesn't appreciate his teasing and mocking of her, so she would risk her job to throw a cake at his face.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
That's something.
That's something. Yeah. And then like the weird cat rivalry of like her and Lena that she is no part of.
That's definitely this will be fun to just pit these two catty women together because that's what they're like, right?
Yeah.
Well, women are catty.
Yeah. Lena is just shallow and like you're my love because we're on screen and she's an idiot. Oh,
cool.
Yeah. Oh, we do need to discuss "Beautiful Girl."
Oh,
the song. Beautiful Girl. How do you feel about that song, Katie?
there's a lot of things in this show where you're like, oh, this is cute and this is wonderful. And it's like you said, there are definitely songs that are Gene Kelly just showing himself off by making it a giant unnecessary dance number. But and you're still like, you know, it makes no sense. It makes no sense that there's it's like suddenly a big giant dance number. But you forgive it. Yeah. I feel like that one is not that song is not as doesn't make sense. But like, forgive it because it's still fun.
It's and they don't even dance half the time.
It's not. They don't do it's nothing.
There.
Oh no, sorry. That is like sorry, that was a really weird analogy. What I meant was I can forgive the giant random dance numbers that go off for way too long. And it's still like, I enjoy it. Yeah. You know, it makes no sense, but I enjoy it. Yeah. The Beautiful Girl song, which like, did we need it? No. Much like, did we need half those dance numbers? No. Do I enjoy it anyway? No.
No, I don't.
No, I don't. No, I don't enjoy it.
It's creepy as hell.
Why did this make it? And then, I don't know. And then everybody, it just, you like going back to the Hollywood stupid of like, you're too old. Yep. Because it makes it even weirder that all the men are so much older.
Yep.
And the women.
Then all the young women.
That was a lot. I'm so sorry, podcasters, for listening to those weird noises that just came out of my mouth.
But that's why I wanted to talk about Beautiful Girl, because like I remember even watching Singing in the Rain going like, what am I watching here? Are we just having a costume parade? Like what?
I feel like Beautiful Girl, I literally blocked out the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Because same. Like why was that needed?
The only purpose.
What was it? What was the plot point that song did?
They needed to get Kathy back into his life, but they could have literally done it from like playing the underscore of that music and just seen her on a set.
Yep. She could have been anywhere. She could have been anywhere. She was still a working actor. She could have been literally anywhere. Yeah. Pop her out of another cake. Yeah. Come on.
Another cake.
Are you kidding me?
Just like a whole, but that number goes on for so long.
It's so long.
And Kathy's not even in it until the end. Like she's not even in, like she's not one of the crazy costumes. Like it literally is just them showing off costumes of exaggerated 1920s fashion.
Young women.
Yes. And talking about how beautiful they are.
Like why?
The guy singing it isn't even a main character. Like, they could have given it to Donald. They could have given it to Gene. But no, they just, like, it's just this random.
It's just weird. It's just so weird. It's just so weird. Like, were you trying to show off your, like, costuming prowess?
Yeah, like,
I don't understand.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't understand. And it goes on for far too long. And visually, other than the costumes, it's not. Yeah. Wow.
Well, and they did, like, I will say, part of the process of getting ready for the film, they did raid the MGM warehouses for dressing, like setting dressing and stuff, and like old silent film. So like I wonder if they're like, look at all this cool stuff we found. But then they spent like so much money on costuming, so like I can't believe they found that. Like they had to have like found something that inspired something.
Right. And like, to have such an elaborate set.
Yeah.
For something that does not matter to the plot. It does.
It's absolutely like pointless. Well, same with Broadway Melody. Like it's a beautifully choreographed sequence. Nothing to do with the plot. Absolutely nothing.
But that one at least you're like,
it's fun to watch. Fun. Yeah, it's fun to watch.
It's enjoyable to watch. It's super long. It's
so long.
You're like halfway through, you're like, oh, is this still the same number? Wow.
Yeah.
But you forgive it because you're like, oh, but it's enjoyable. Yeah. There's a lot of, it's not my favorite, but you're enjoying the dancing. You're enjoying the sequences. You're enjoying the nonsense. But like this, did we need to show all these pretty ladies like cars behind the
it's like literal objects of like, look at this outfit and look at what, like, let me talk to you about what she's wearing.
For no reason, which makes them more objecty.
Yep.
Like if we saw Kathy the whole time, maybe we saw her jumping into this role,
or like,
and she's like, hey, this isn't where I want to be.
Yeah,
I should be the face of something bigger because I am doing it. Yeah, if we had like that, could have been a moment for her. Yeah, to be in this number, bring her on earlier. And have shots of her being like, yeah, this is probably the worst gig I've picked. This is the worst gig I've been in.
Yeah.
And no. Why would they do that when they can show her off at the end as a big prize?
Yep.
I'm going to prize to be won.
Yep.
Like what?
Yep.
What? Jasmine said it better.
Yep. I agree. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because Kathy's technically in it for like a hot second.
But yeah, because it's what.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't even make words. I can't even say this is happening. I'm like,
I think it's, and then isn't it right after that they have like this romantic duet where like she's put on the balcony and like it that like where he just like romances her in the studio, and we get the like knight in shining armor.
Can
moment.
we just a touch talk about?
Yeah.
And I think this is a decade thing. I think this is an era thing where at the time, because I feel like different generations have different, like, I don't think kink is the right word, but something along that line. So the things that excite you. Yeah. You know, different things are big tickets, you know, like the enemies to lovers, like that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. So, and there's a wide variety of those kinds of things, but I feel like how persistent he is with her and how little she gives back to him in general. Yeah. How little. I mean, you know, like it gets there in the end, but it's like a long, in general, she is not like super thrilled. Like when she's in that car after the whole cake scene, like she is not like, thrilled to be in the car with him. So I like maybe in that era, Gene Kelly, the movie star, thinking Cinderella vibes, you know, coming, pursuing you, just a lowly working actor, and he wants you because you're a beautiful, like maybe that is like a romantic vibe that people were getting at the time. Now, does it make me cringe? Absolutely.
Well, and it's this like the idea that like she stood up to this movie star, like he's always treated like a star, and like this person called him out on his BS, so I must love her. Like, you know, like it's a soft version of enemies to lovers. Yeah. You know? But she like really, to be honest, she gets the most out of this relationship.
Oh, for sure. 1,000%.
You know, like she gets a way better paying job. Like, can't blame her for it.
Yeah, no, we are not blaming you at all.
But yeah, like the lack of her seeking him out.
Yes, she like does not seek him out
at all.
At all. Like not even a little bit.
Actively says, I quit, basically, because you're going to fire me anyway because he's here. And I threw a cake at him. Like, and then is then like stopped to be like, no, we want to cast you in this movie. Like, yeah, if it is very like martyry and like saviory, and he is the only pursuer of it. And she is just along for the ride. Yeah. Which again, good for you. But
yes. But does it feel like does it feel like something her character would do, or does it feel like we wrote it like this and she's doing it as it's written?
Yeah, it feels very,
which is not her fault because she is such an endearing human being and she does make the best of that character. But the way it's written, I feel like I don't know how you would have done it unless it was Judy or one of these other bigger actors who could fight back and be like, hey, can we give this one a little more character development?
Yeah. Well, and it felt very old Hollywood where, I mean, let's be honest, Debbie Reynolds was found at a beauty pageant and brought in to be a Hollywood, like this feels very like pick you out of the thing and I will make you a star. Yeah. And it's written as a romance, and he like Don doesn't feel overly creepy as written, but like looking at the situation itself, you're just like, she really had no, I don't know, it just feels a little groomy. Yeah. You know?
It does, which is why I'm thinking that it was like a time period.
Yeah, we're like, it definitely like
this was romantic at the time.
Yeah, like you saw you in the street, now you're a movie star. Like that. I mean, that one that kind of happened, but at that time,
does not fly.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, well, and she has to end up with him, right? Because if she did all of this, became a star, and didn't end up with him, she would not have a career anymore. So like it feels very attached to like her success and the romance rather than her finding success and falling for him, or being someone who was super talented and they needed someone with her talents for the role. You know what I mean? Like because she didn't have to have, other than being able to sing and not being Lena's voice. Like she literally just had to not sound like Lena, and she could have been passed as that role.
Yes.
So the amount of talent that she actually needed for that role was minimum.
Yes.
Which makes it even grosser. Cool. Which sucks because I do like the banter that she gets is very confident.
Oh, yeah.
Like
yeah.
she does have like once and she has likes. But then she just gets completely swept up as the ingenue.
Yeah, she has no agency. She does have, like you said, she has desires. She has, it's not just, she's not totally flat, but she's pretty flat for being in a lot of the film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not, like, she doesn't really change. Her situation changes. And it's about the duo. It's about Donald O'Connor and Gene Kelly. Like it's about Cosmo and Don.
Yeah, that is, it is. I mean, it's still a lovely musical. It's still so fun. It's still, the movie is definitely something that.
Oh, it's a classic.
I think a lot. I mean, like, I pull out and watch every once in a while just for fun because it's fun to enjoy.
And you know what? Gene Kelly handled his stress of teaching someone how to dance.
Yeah, you can't tell.
Like he
on screen.
Yeah, he did. Like they still fell in love with each other on screen. It doesn't look like they hate each other on screen. And she looks fantastic dancing.
Is this the show that, or was it Judy Garland? I know there's one person who is able to get them to not costume the woman to match the background. And I can't remember if it was this movie or if it was Judy Garland with him. It was like,
it most likely is Judy Garland. Like, let's be real.
Because I feel like there was very few moments because he would actively have the costumes like match the set. For the women, not for him, of course.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like,
so
it's his.
I don't remember if it was this one or not. But
I would say that most likely is, I mean.
A scenario with him and Judy?
Yeah. I think Judy would have been big enough at that time to be like, absolutely not. Because she did Dorothy in 39. So she would have been a pretty big star by the time he was with her. But yeah, so the movie became a much bigger hit, like, and it grew in love. So they finally decided to make a theatrical version. And it premiered in the West End in 1983. So it did take a couple decades.
Interesting that it did the West End first.
Yeah, like I think around that time, a lot more things were testing that out as like an art. Like there's more support in art over there.
That's so interesting though, because it takes place in 20s Hollywood.
I know it might have felt like exotic. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Right, interesting.
But it
not mad about it.
No, It did premiere on Broadway in 1985. The story was done by Comden and Green again. So like that, like it was still the team, and the music. Right. The music is still from Freed and Nasio or Brown catalog. So they weren't like adding new. It almost is like word for word the movie. It took it straight. Didn't try to do anything. It added a song for Lena that's comedic relief, but it went pretty
and the
straight.
Dance numbers I feel like are often cut. Like a lot of the like, well, not cut per se, but shortened. A lot.
Yeah. So it's still a long haul. There was a proposed Broadway transfer in Paris in 2015. I think that's the one Derek Huff was a part of. I vaguely remember him being a part of it for a hot second, like the attempt at making it back on Broadway. But I mean, it didn't last that long on Broadway, and it's a musical about a medium that it did the medium first in. So like it's really hard to bring the idea of talkies and silent films onto the stage because it's a film. So
it almost makes more sense as a film.
It does. I mean, it's talking about film. Like it's talking about the film industry. So to theatricalize it is to take it a step away from the art form itself and just try to recreate it. Like some of the notes in the Broadway version say like you could, if you don't have the ability to do the projection, because they still show the silent film scenes that you have to talk about. In the script, which I guess you could put out in the audience, you wouldn't have to necessarily project it, but they suggest you could have a separate cast do black and white and like act it out, which could be really funny.
Right.
But also like you're losing you're just losing the film aspect of it. So it makes sense to me that it hasn't gotten a lot of life. Plus the technical need, because you have to do some of those dance numbers exactly.
And there's a lot of stuff, because that also, not only does it have dance numbers, but someone I knew in college, they had done it in high school, as you do.
Yep.
Like I feel like a lot of
did they make it rain
in high school? I don't know if they made it rain, because I was too busy laughing at how the person who played Don, not the main
Don and Cosmo,
Don's the main character.
Yeah,
Cosmo is who I'm trying to say, because Cosmo like runs through a wall at some point.
He does the wall jump, which I have a whole bunch of stuff about him that we'll talk about. in the after hours.
That for sure he ran through it like in high school, and like severely injured himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're trying to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what
they still did the show. They still did it.
You have to recreate. Like, it's so iconic that if you tried to do the song Singing in the Rain and you did not do at least almost all of Gene Kelly's choreography, then what are we doing?
Or have watered down. If you didn't do the couch tip.
Yeah. If you didn't do the couch tip,
that's always
Good
a
Morning,
big thing where everybody is like, yes, we made it this time. Whoo! And you're like, wow, equity would never.
No.
But high schools, for sure, take those rights.
Yeah. Well,
big money.
and you have to do the wall somersault. It's classic.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there was a tour of it for a while too. Like, that guy had to do it. Like, there are some things that you just have to do because they're iconic. They were so iconic. Like
of course. And they did such a phenomenal job, the original people, you know? So it's like,
that's
a lot to live up to.
The Broadway show is just a theatrical attempt at doing the movie. There's nothing gained by doing it at theater. You can't do anything new because that's not what people come to see. So it just doesn't have a big regional life unless you can accomplish it, which some people do, but it's not like you don't make it your own. You don't.
No.
Yeah, you don't do an artistic version of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah. And like harkening back to even this season itself, very few of these shows that were originally movies did better as musicals.
Yeah.
Like almost all of them.
Yeah.
The movie is way more remembered and better than than the stage production. So that is, something to say about the original medium.
Yeah. For sure. And the era that was such a movie musical heavy era too. Like they were working in such a specific time for movie musicals as well. But yeah, it's Kat. I mean, I still like Kathy. I still like the show. It's not about her. No. She's the romantic lead with not much. She gets a little feistiness in her a little bit.
But that's it. But she's really sugary. I mean, she's probably has some of the least dimension of anybody a lot of people that we've talked about.
Yeah.
For being in the show so much.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate. And she's fine. But she's not anything that we're just like, oh man, Kathy's such a good character. It's like, oh, she's fine. No, we can't.
There's nothing we can dive into really.
Yeah. It's,
which is a bummer. But we do love the show.
We do love it.
Ready for After Hours.
Yeah, we get to talk about.
We get to dive into everything else.
Stuff. Yeah. Talk about lots of the guys in After Hours. I will leave us with a fun fact that has to do with the Sid Charisse, who was the ballerina dancer in the green dress. In Broadway Melody. Yes. We all know her, that iconic leg. Okay.
For sure.
So the fun fact is Sid Charisse was taller than Gene Kelly.
I'm in love with that fact, even without you continuing.
So Gene Kelly choreographed his dance scenes with her to hide the fact that she was taller than him. So to keep the height difference from being obvious, Kelly staged the routine so that the two were rarely upright when standing next to each other, and they were always bending to or away from each other when that happened.
This man made a woman who is taller than him pretend that she wasn't on top of wearing a toupee.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So
wow.
That's my fun fact.
Yay! I love that. Thank you all so much for listening. And we hope to see you at our After Hours and our next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Damsels in Dialogue. Tune in next week as we race with the clock at a pajama factory and join Union Leader Babe in the pajama game.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, you can help us reach even more listeners by subscribing to the podcast and leaving a rating or comment on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you're listening.
If you want to join us for even more discussions and opinions about Singing in the Rain or any of our episodes, head over to our Patreon. There you can support the podcast and unlock an entire library of exclusive after-hour video podcasts with a new one arriving each month. You can also unlock research notes, bloopers, and more.
Follow us on social media and at our website on damselsindialogue.podbean.com. Until next time, this has been Damsels in Dialogue.
Have a nice day.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Royal Princess Parties, LLC, and is produced by Hello Out There Audio, part of Hello Out There Productions.